As of the writing of this script, I have finished the complete draft of Charmwork's first book. There's still plenty of revising, editing, beta reads, and publishing steps to work through, but it is certainly a milestone I am happy to have reached. And if this is your first time hearing about Charmwork, I'll give a very short spiel and then direct you to this playlist with all of the videos detailing more aspects of it. Basically, it's a fantasy xenofiction series I'm currently writing about a group of cats and a dog who all have to adapt to a new and magical life together when various experiences tear each of them from their old lives. When I'm further along in the editing process, I would like to make a video about how I approach editing and why it is such an important part of the writing process. But for now, I'd like to discuss a topic that has been at the back of my mind for a while. How do you choose which characters to make your points of view? Let's start with why I chose third-person limited as a perspective in the first place. Part of it is a genre convention. Xenofiction, that is, fiction from the perspective of animals, is a very small genre with a lot of variation in style, level of realism, intended age demographic, publishing date, and otherwise. However, one thing that most, not all, but most, have in common is sticking to one character's perspective to see through, either through first-person or third-person limited, in order to show what it is like to be in the head of the animal. Books with humans as protagonists don't need to teach the reader what it's like to be human, but you do have to do a little more work when your protagonists are a different species from the readers. Second, though, is the fact that my particular story relies on mysteries that the reader uncovers slowly, so keeping the reader tied to specifically chosen perspectives helps to manage information distribution. As for why I chose third-person limited over first-person, it's mainly for practical reasons. Third-person limited allows you to use the main character's name more often, and describe things that they're doing but might not choose to do consciously, which is more flexible for helping readers to learn about, remember, and understand the characters. Once that decision was made, I needed to decide who was going to be my point of view character, and there are a lot of factors that go into that decision. Functionally, the point of a point of view, or POV character, is to see and show off the world, cast, and plot to the reader. But ideally, they should also be someone whose personal character arc helps demonstrate the theme of your series. Depending on how you start constructing your story ideas, you may be building your story and cast around a specific character already, who becomes the natural choice for a POV protagonist. If the rest of your cast are meant to each share a piece of the plot or lesson with the main character, represent pieces of the main character or choices that they make, or are meant to support one protagonist, then you could very easily make the central character your only point of view character. However, if you have a cast where everyone shares pieces of the theme, plot relevance, or otherwise, things become more complicated, and you will often require multiple POVs. If you choose to use one point of view character for the full book or series of books, you need to be sure they are someone who will see the entire plot, and ideally seek it out to prevent the feeling of contrivances if the hero keeps stumbling across the plot. You need to make sure that they have a reason to meet and become interested in getting to know the rest of your cast, or make them someone that the rest of your cast wants to get to know. Be careful with the latter option for the record, as if you don't give them some amount of mutual interest, or have the rest of the cast be interested in the protagonist without justifying it in some element of their character, it can come off as forced and actually turn your readers off of your protagonist as a character. If there are any details about the world that differ from our own, as is often the case in both xenofiction and fantasy, your POV also needs to be someone who either doesn't know about the world's lore yet, or be someone who is in a position to teach it to someone else, in order to give you, as the writer, more natural opportunities to share necessary details of the world and lore. And, most importantly, but also most vaguely, your POV needs to be someone likable, complex, or loathsome enough for readers to enjoy being in their perspective for the duration of their time reading. This is entirely vague because what makes a character interesting or tolerable will vary from reader to reader, but a good rule of thumb is to at least make sure that character is someone you are very interested in, and ask beta readers to give you their perspectives on your characters in general once you've finished executing the draft. If everyone dislikes the POV or finds them boring, or if they come across as the only interesting or likable character in your cast, you might want to make some changes. Alternatively, you could take the Wings of Fire approach and use one point of view character per book, but shift who that POV character is with each book in the series. This does mean you get more time to understand each protagonist, compared to when a book is divided between multiple POVs, but it means that the entirety of each character's main arc needs to be constrained to the book where they're in focus, and it is easy to fall into a pattern of not using characters as much outside of their focus book. Arcs in the plot or relationships between books may also be more disjointed, either in execution or presentation, which may be more difficult for readers to understand. However, you do get the chance to see similar plot elements and main cast relationships from multiple perspectives across the books, which can give readers a more objective sense of what relationships, characters, or plot elements are like. And depending on the size of your cast and number of books, you may well get to heavily involve your whole cast by the end of the story, a much harder feat in a series with a single POV character. And of course, the last possibility is using multiple point-of-view characters per book, either using the same pair, trio, or even quartet for each book, or varying them between books. I would say that if you're trying to introduce brand new characters or a new world or plot, having too many characters can take away from the time you have to get used to any of them, and can be disorienting for readers. I wouldn't personally go beyond 3 characters in a book until the cast is well established over multiple previous books. No matter the number of characters you choose, though, the characters' arcs are going to be more spread out, across multiple chapters or even multiple books, so there's always the worry that readers may have forgotten important details by the time an arc is completed, or that they may find individual books unfulfilling if they can't see progress on some or any of the character arcs. One good way to combat this is having development milestones at the end of each book, even if the full arc will take several books to complete. You'll also need to ensure within each book that each POV character's voice and experiences are distinct and recognizable to make sure readers can easily tell them apart when switching between chapters, and that they get value out of all perspectives. One character being heavily involved in the plot and the other still being unaware of and not involved in it in the same book is going to cause some dissonance when readers switch between their chapters. But all characters traveling as a group in the same story, without much distinctions in their perspectives, is going to make it feel unnecessary for you to have multiple POVs at all. There are also always going to be worries that readers may have a harder time retaining what is going on with each character's story when they switch back and forth between them. And on the other hand, it may be difficult to remember which characters know which parts of the plot or lore if they're all going through roughly the same story. A lot of the decision in which POV character setup will fit your story comes down to you considering and understanding who your cast is, what function they will play in the theme, and what sort of plot you'll be showing. Are all of your characters representing component parts of a main character? Do all of your characters give a lesson to the protagonist? Are all of your characters already a group when the story begins? Do they come together as a group during the story as part of their development? Or are they never truly a unit as all characters are interested in the plot for their own reasons? Do many of your characters have theme-relevant secrets about the lore, wider cast, antagonists, or each other that should be uncovered over time rather than shown at the beginning? Are one or more of your characters involved in a prophecy, working as collective heroes, or acting as a chosen one in ways that would make them stand out as a hero or heroes? Do your characters spend most of the story doing completely different things in different places in ways that will eventually converge together for the main plot? Or are all of your characters sharing different perspectives on roughly the same issues? For every story you create, you'll have to answer these questions differently, and those answers will lead you to make different choices about how you set up your points of view, and which characters you put in those positions. So there isn't a single correct answer. However, I will share what I have chosen for my own series. I've stated before that Lotta is the main character of the series, which is true now, but when I was initially developing the cast, I developed everyone with equal importance, as they do all have valuable perspectives and unique backgrounds that lend themselves to both learning and teaching a facet of the overall theme by the end. There were ultimately 2 reasons I moved forward with Lotta as the main character despite that. First, she is the cat most motivated to connect with and learn about the rest of the cast by the end of the story, which makes it easier to show off the full cast's personalities and values over time. Second is that the particular lesson she learns has several more steps than the other characters' lessons do, and can be spread out over multiple books in ways that actually spur other characters to act as well. As a tertiary third reason, the lesson she learns is the main reason I wanted to write Charmwork in the first place, because I have never seen it depicted in fiction and would have appreciated a story like this growing up. So Lotta is an easy choice for the point of view character. I have development markers for her to reach at the end of each of the 5 books, and she even knows less about the city than other characters in the cast. However, I couldn't stop there. A very important part of the story and theming has to do with the cast having different perspectives on the same relationships, and only being able to resolve those differences with work over time. This meant that I wasn't comfortable showing just Lotta's perspective because I don't want the reader taking her perspective, or anyone else's, as absolutely right or wrong. What I ended up doing was looking at each book's general plot and deciding which character's arc would fit best playing off of or being spurred by that plot. And it led me to choose 1, 2, or in the final book, potentially 3, other characters to share perspective duties with Lotta. For the first book, that pair is Lotta and Spring. Both are former house cats in some form and haven't learned much about Charmwork or the city, allowing a lot of lore, routines, and later mysteries to be dripped out slowly as they show interest. However, one of them was adopted into a loving home with a dog companion and 2 humans that she lost and wants desperately to get back to, while the other was never adopted by anyone and wants desperately to move on to a new life in the city, ideally with Lotta herself since they were friends as kittens. They have almost contradictory views on their futures, their pasts, and the other members of their groups, but also care about each other deeply, which drives a lot of the conflict and growth in the first book. I also chose not to flip back and forth between the two every chapter, but rather start with just Lotta for a while, switching to Spring when Lotta meets Spring, and then flipping between them when their perspective would be more valuable for the scene I need to write, or the relationship I'm trying to show. By the end, I do, and hopefully you should, learn about and understand both of them despite their differences, and with them as steady rocks to hold on to, it will be easier in Book 2 and onwards to expand to characters more familiar with the unfamiliar wild world. I'll leave the matter of who exactly those future POVs will be as a secret for now, but I hope you will enjoy this series as I'm able to release it. If you have any further questions about the series or characters, I'll try to answer as many as I'm able to, and I'll also be answering questions in the Patreon Discord as they come up, along with giving teasers there about both the books and future videos. As always, thank you for watching, and always remember that there is no wrong way to construct your story, as long as it is done with intention and care for what would benefit it.